photography is the closest to mindfulness because painters can create their art from memory or from sketches, and they can build on it over time, whereas photography happens in that instant.
Well, I love the San Gabriel Valley.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast.
So I grew up here and I still live in Alhambra.
I was raised in between Temple City and Alhambra.
Eventually resided in South San Gabriel.
Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley.
Monterey Park has pretty much been my whole life.
Well, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley.
We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you are from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome. All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Victoria, do you, I guess that you would pray, but do you have a routine or do you meditate regularly? Wow, I can't even say that. Regularly.
No, I wouldn't say I do.
When you feel maybe stressed out or upset, what is your go-to routine?
It's usually like by myself, listening to music. Kind of just laying on the floor or something like that, just focusing on the music. Focusing on music. Is that a distraction or are you like intentionally trying to change your mood through the lyrics in the song? I think it can depend. Usually it's to match what I'm feeling, but sometimes I do purposely try to use it to influence, I guess, my emotions so I can go on with what the day I need to do next. Like if it's something like immediate, then I would do that. But yeah, I prefer to use it to match what I'm feeling though.
For me, one, like now as I'm older, first I have an awareness that like I'm in this state, right? Like where I maybe didn't have before. And when I didn't have an awareness before, I would just go into my normal things. And one of the things that I did have an awareness of was going into physical exercise. And I'd always thought that was like a good thing, right? Like it's a good thing, but it's just like totally ignoring and distracting myself from actually what's going on internally. And so now I have a different mindset and a more awareness of what I'm experiencing. And a new concept to me has been like when I feel fear in my body to like sort of return to like understanding like, okay, like I'm actually safe, right? Even though all these things are going on in my mind, I'm sitting here in this chair. I feel my heartbeat. I feel, this chair. And sometimes it works, sometimes it takes longer than others, but it's quite amazing to see how powerful the mind is, right? To make us feel certain ways. So I'm excited to have this conversation with our guest today. But before that, thank you to Paris Baguette for sponsoring this show with the delicious pastries every week. They are been a sponsor for the show maybe for close to a year now, I think. Go check them out in the city of San Gabriel on Las Tunas and say hi to Jason for us. Today we welcome a uniquely creative mind who has journeyed from the entertainment industry into the world of mindfulness and breathwork here in the San Gabriel Valley. Starting as a designer, she eventually found her true path in meditation and mindfulness. Over the past decade, she's worked as a trauma-informed, arts-based educator, learning that connecting mind, body, and breath deepens creative expression. With her company, Inner Design, she helps others tap into their creative potential through workshops, classes, and coaching. Let's dive into her story. Welcome to the podcast, Rubina Chadha. Rubina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
You said a term earlier that I was like, oh, I've never heard that before, but I get it. What did you say?
Oh, yeah. People are like, oh, you're probably sitting at home and you're really blissed out.
Yeah, blissed out.
Yeah. People just assume that I'm meditating. I do meditate a lot of my day, but they think, oh, I'm just in this relaxed position all the time, or I have a very easy, smooth flowing day, or I'm doing nothing. Maybe I'm not as busy. It's quite the opposite. I'm very busy, very active.
Sure.
And, I think these techniques, mindfulness, breathwork, meditation, yoga, that's what keeps me grounded. And I'm able to carry that peace into my day instead of being wrapped up in the, regular whirlwind like everyone else.
Sure. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we got that on the show. Blissed out. First time I heard it, but instantly I was like, I had this picture in my mind of what that
people,
means.
Yeah, exactly. People are thinking that. They're like, oh, we were just saying like, oh, it's been so busy to try and get each other connected and get this happening. And I was like, it's okay. It's part of my everyday routine to be busy.
Sure. Well, Rubina, let's start with, what is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
So I was born and raised in Monterey Park, grew up right there, and went to college in Pasadena, and then lived most of my life in San Gabriel Valley. I lived for about a decade in Orange County, and then came back, got drawn back in home in this area.
What part of Monterey Park did you grow up in?
Right by Monterey Highlands, right up the hills, behind the golf course.
Is that Luminarias?
Yeah, right by Luminarias.
Okay. And there's like Hi-Ho Market up there.
Hi-Ho Market, it has not been anything, I think, much since then. They just developed something, closed it back down. I wish a market would open up again. Yeah.
And that road going, is that Garvey that goes up and it turns to Monterey Pass?
So Garvey, you would take Garvey, Monterey Pass, yes, and then you would go up Casuta Canyon, and it kind of makes a little circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I shared that with you when we first met over Zoom, but like my mom used to take me to a park there next to Hi-Ho Market. We would play tennis, and then I always remember getting peach frozen yogurt at Hi-Ho Market.
That was the best flavor. It's so amazing. Other people that think of Hi-Ho Market also bring up the peach frozen yogurt. And I'm like, that was a fabulous flavor. Plus it was like the late 80s and that peach color was really in, the Converse it matched. And like,
Yeah, that's my memory of that. What was like life growing up in that area of Monterey Park for you?
My mom had a lot of her relatives living close by in Monterey Park. So I have a lot of memories of that, just like that whole area being a lot of aunties around. And my grandparents also lived in Monterey Park. And so it's always just been a place of home. Everyone eventually kind of moved, spread out, time passes. My parents are still in the same home that, I was essentially born into.
Your ethnic background is?
Indian.
Mm-hmm. And are your parents like immigrants here? Were they born here?
My parents are immigrants. I was the first generation born here, and my parents were actually not born and raised in India either. They were both born and raised in Burma. So,
that's right. You told me that. Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's like I'm second generation removed from India.
So what was life like culturally for you?
Interestingly, of course, a lot of emphasis in the Indian culture, but also there was some things with the Burmese culture, like I didn't realize till much later, comfort food for me was a noodle soup, basically. It was more the Burmese influence. Of course, we ate Indian food often, but that was like what I maybe craved, like other people crave grilled cheeses or whatever. For me, it's like noodle soup. Yeah.
Were you aware that you were different?
Growing up, I didn't realize that. And in fact, I have a younger sister. She also said, there were some things there were some Burmese words, and we thought, didn't all Indians know this also? So I don't think we really realized it because on both sides of the family, we had that, the Burmese influence. So it was quite unique,
And being of Indian descent, even coming from Burma, were there a lot of other Indians in that area?
There were not, no. And in school, I think actually throughout my entire education, even at ArtCenter, I was almost always the only Indian. If there was another Indian there, like there was one more Indian with me in high school or one more Indian in college, and they would be like, oh, are you guys related? I'm like, yes, of course, because we were both Indian. Yes, the other brown person, yes, that must be my brother or my sister, right? So it was interesting, yeah.
Did you get mistaken for Latina?
A lot. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot. I grew up with a huge extended family, so I think that kept the culture, the language, the, food, all of that stuff. I have like 13 cousins on either side, so they weren't all in Southern California, but it was always like big, large family gatherings. So I did see enough people, but they were all my relatives, enough Indians,
And they were living in this area too.
They were in Southern California, spread out, and then over the years they've spread a little farther. On my mom's side, a lot of them are on the East Coast as well, and yeah.
So growing up, like you were the only Indian, and I know the demographics of Monterey Park, mostly Asian and Latino. How were you received in that community?
I think I probably assimilated a lot. I think I just was, okay, fine, maybe I look Latina, maybe, and not having a lot of, to be honest, like the language barrier was there with my family culture. It's like my mom raised us just speaking English, so we learned later on to understand Hindi and Punjabi, specifically like the dialect of my dad's family. It wasn't something that we spoke often, so I kind of feel like the mentality was to assimilate. My parents assimilated in Burma. They spoke the Burmese language, they ate the Burmese food, they carried that. So I think they more had that kind of mentality. We are here, we're raising you here as an American, and so you're an American. And so I think that was something that was really strong in my upbringing, was that, you're an American, here you are, you do what other Americans do. Until I was in high school did I even really start to delve into like who am I or who I am as an Indian, and what does that mean, or what does my culture bring?
So you speak English, Hindi, Punjabi, and Burmese.
Burmese? No, I only know the bad language. Burmese. Hindi and Punjabi, I would say very broken, not very, English is my main language, yeah. Hindi and Punjabi I can understand. I'm not confident. I feel like I sound like a white girl when I speak. They probably see me or hear me and they're like, oh, she's totally an American. And they have this term, ABCD. Are you ABCD? A lot of people will ask me. It's American born, confused Desi. Desi is what the Indians, call themselves from the homeland. Yeah. So
are your family Sikh?
We are not, in the sense that I didn't grow up in a family that really practiced traditional religion in any way. And I think that's what led to a lot of my discovery, like on my spiritual path, and finding meditation, mindfulness. Meditation was definitely practiced in my home. My mom grew up in a house where her mom had followed Buddhist traditions. So there was that Buddhism, mentality more of your practice is an inward practice. It's not about going out there to a place of, religious practice. It was something in the home. And so same thing, I wouldn't say I'm born in a Hindu Punjabi family. We have gone to Gurdwaras where Sikh go. We also have gone to, the mandirs with Hindus. I grew up and I went to Catholic school pretty much my whole education up until high school. And so it's interesting, I think when I was in high school, it's probably feisty. And I used to say, I'm either going to turn up really messed up because I have this Hindu, Burmese, Sikh, Catholic, all this jumbled up stuff, or it'll bring me to my path. Excuse me. And I think it really did bring me to the discovery that there was something that was similar that was going through all of these different practices, these different messages. And that similarity was something that I found in the meditative practice. It was just everybody is one. Everybody's saying the same thing, right? Everyone wants peace and love. And it was more humanization, I think, in my life. And I say this kind of jokingly sometimes, like I can go into, any temple, Gurdwara, church, know when to stand, sit, what to say, all of those little things, those little nuances, the little rituals and little practices to fit in. And I think there's something special to that. I think it makes me feel like, I belong everywhere.
I want to come back to that to fit in and belong statement later. But so you had this, it sounds like a vein of spirituality from a very early age, right?
Yes.
And you obviously have influence from many, many cultures at a very young age. So then you said you went to a non-Catholic school in Alhambra. Is that where you went?
I went to a Catholic school.
Oh, you went to a Catholic school for high school. Oh, where did you go?
In Alhambra, Ramona
Convent.
Yes,
oh.
yes.
Okay. We actually had several guests here that went there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous.
And what was that like for you?
I think that, I was definitely rebellious as a teenager, and I was kind of like, why can't I just go to public school, with other friends? That was like a big thing. What was it like actually once I kind of like sat into, being there and the acceptance? Of course, it wasn't like my choice. I want to go to an all-girls school. I was, high school, teenager, probably, just wanting to do the norm that everyone else has. My parents both went to Catholic schools growing up in Burma. So for them, they felt there was value and there was tradition, and this is what good education was. And so I think actually it was really good education. I think when I was there, I realized it was a development of myself, thinking of like a college prep school. What is that really preparing you more than just preparing you for college? It was preparing you to become who you were. And I think when I look back at like how people are right now with different, I'll say like the feminist movements and stuff like that, understanding that there was that development in me in high school, just amongst other girls, just learning and being able to be myself and not worry about, in that age of hormones, you're the opposite gender and all the interactions that happened, that wasn't there as a distraction or an attraction either, right? So that being eliminated, I think really allowed me to go into discovering who I am as a woman, and then being surrounded by other women who are, speaking to who they are becoming. And so it's interesting you even say that you've had a few guests come that are from Ramona. I think that there's a different, I want to say like a different flavor or a different taste of a personality, the confidence. And I noticed that when I went to college, and then I was in a rigorous situation at ArtCenter, like, just really, it's boot camp for artists, which is really hard, I think, in a lot of ways for sensitive, creative types. But having that strength and knowing, like, my high school really prepared me to be able to stand on my 2 feet and be who I need to be.
That's quite the description, a boot camp for artists.
Yes.
Like they just put you through...
They put you through a really rigorous program at ArtCenter. We used to call it that, at least internally. And I think that the concept was that the Bauhaus movement was very structured, and that art and creativity happens through structure. I believe that. I saw it. I experienced it. We learned the best of technical skills being in that school, and it has quite a reputation for that. And now, looking back, like I actually am in the middle of pitching my program to them, because I feel people need to understand that balance, that inner balance, getting their mental, emotional health, their needs, their, mindful stability, I'll say, is an important part of being creative. The
2 women who also went to Ramona, I think one was maybe in her 70s and the other in her late 20s, but they shared the same sentiment about it.
Really?
Yeah, that it really prepared them. You said that you were rebellious when you first went there. Was there a moment or maybe an individual where that sort of changed for you?
Yeah, I had some friends. It was my friend group. I think that really very warmly brought me in. I felt seen. And it wasn't about even tending to that feeling of being rebellious. It was like, we accept you for who you are, whoever you are, and we also feel those kind of feelings. And I think, I'll always say it this way, like in high school, I found my weirdos, like they were just equally artists who wanted to express themselves, and were in the situation where we felt like, oh, are we being repressed here now that, we have to be in uniform and we don't get to have our creative expression through how we dress or how we appear. There was a lot of those kind of, the regiment to that. And I think that I could let it go. Like, okay, it doesn't matter. We're all here at that equal level. It's not about our expression being like what we're wearing, how we're dressing, or how we're appearing. There's something deeper. It was like the opportunity to kind of surpass that or go past it,
I guess that's something so obvious about having to wear a uniform every day at that age, right?
Yeah.
I never thought of that. When I was in the military, I enjoyed not having to think about what I had to wear every day. I was just like, okay, just grab this. And then, there was such an ease to it. But like, I can see, like, when you're young, you really want to express who you are, and clothing is huge.
Yeah, I think eventually it did become a relief of like, now I can focus on something deeper, something bigger, something more important, because I am just putting on the same clothes every day. And then once in a while when we had a free dress day, then it was like, that was something special. Then it was time to really really take the thought into what you were going to wear, not just like, oh, I just threw on, jeans and a sweatshirt because it's cold today.
Sure.
So it was kind of interesting, yeah.
And you were already aware of your artistic side in high school. And when did you decide to go to ArtCenter?
So I started actually the ArtCenter program when they had something for high schoolers. It was called Saturday High back then. And a friend had mentioned it. Have you heard of ArtCenter? You love photography. Why don't you check it out? And that was my entry point to ArtCenter, in the sense that I became really close with the teacher as a mentor and worked on my portfolio to be able to present it, and then think of ArtCenter as like the next step when I was thinking of colleges.
And for those who don't know ArtCenter, yes, it's a school for artists, but it's probably one of, if not the most prestigious art school in the nation. Is that a correct statement?
That is absolutely correct, yeah.
I think not only is it like difficult to get in, but like very challenging from what I understand.
It's very challenging. There were many students. I mean, I think I started in a group of maybe 20 students in my cohort. And I feel like there was maybe 12 of us that graduated together. So it's very challenging, very rigorous to get through it.
What is that like? What's a challenging project that you would be given to do?
So when I went to ArtCenter, I was in the photo department. I'll tell you, that story was interesting as well. You basically spent a lot of your day on the stage sets, in the labs, in the dark room, and you were just, really immersed in it. I think the day started, I remember, like around 8 o'clock in the morning. And many nights I was leaving there at 10 p.m. So it wasn't just the classes. You were in studio classes a lot too. So you were all setting up cameras. We first learned on 4x5 cameras, under that big dark cloth you put over your head. It's like so ancient, right? Ansel Adams style. And so the equipment was, very, I would say, rigorous to handle. It's not like what we think of today. We all walk around with these little iPhones and take wonderful photos. Back then, it was quite an effort to go through it. And it wasn't just a 5-day program like that. You lived, ate, breathed, everything ArtCenter. Your weekends were around your projects. You wanted to do personal projects and have things go in your portfolio. So there was a lot of challenge. The teachers are great. All the professors are professionals working in the industry. So you're getting these top-notch. You knew, like, okay, this great design firm was out there, and there's the top designers, and they were coming and teaching us. So it was really such a great experience. And still, I'm really close and in touch with a lot of people there and their programs, and it still is constantly developing and advancing with technology.
So you went there to do photography.
Yes. So I went there because I wanted to be a photographer. And I think I knew that for a long time in my life. If I look back now, I remember the very first time I picked up a camera. I was 12 years old. My dad was an amateur photographer. He was a hobbyist. And he took the greatest pictures. Everyone in the family and friend circle always were wanting him to take portraits or, take pictures at events. And I watched that. I think what I saw was that he was happy, he had this passion. And I wanted to share in that. And he did, guide me and lead me. We made our own bathroom into a dark room, in my high school years. He supported me through that passion. And, when time came, like, I want to go to art school, my mom was like, what? Typical, like, East Asian. So it's like, oh my gosh, Asian parent, like, you're going to go to art school. No. But my dad was, yes, follow your passion, follow your heart. I will support you. You can always do whatever it is you want to do. About halfway through my ArtCenter, education, my track, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm in the dark room all the time. I'm in these labs all the time. I'm always on stage. It's dark. And I think I'm a pretty typical Southern California girl. I love to be in the sun. I love to be out. And also I was getting all these chemical reactions. I would get rashes from all the chemistry and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so rigorous. I never thought I was going to spend all this time, working in the labs, and I hated it. I began to hate it. At first it was exciting and fun. And then it was just a chore. And it was probably around the time when digital was starting to arise. And I thought, oh, I can get my negatives and I can scan them in on this high quality drum scanners. And then I can bring them in. And we had Photoshop classes we were required to take, and I can bring into Photoshop. And then I can print it out and I can avoid all of that mess, And it was kind of like, oh, this is great. I can still get the outcome I want. And as I started to explore in that, I realized, oh, I can get outcomes that I couldn't get in camera, right? So now I can have this beautiful image that has 20 layers of clouds and different colors that I could never create just out there going in the world with my camera, or I could never really recreate something on stage like this. And so it really opened up my avenue of working as more of a digital artist. They didn't like that necessarily. I mean, we had like very traditional professors at that time. It was, the late 90s. And so they were like, film is forever. Digital is going to die. And so I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, is that going to be true or not? And I just really pushed through on the digital side of it. It got more and more expressive for me. I could really create imagery I wanted to. And I started taking all kinds of digital classes, just moving beyond photography, taking more design classes, taking motion graphics classes, sound engineering classes, putting together a reel. I really just kind of pushed the envelope for the second half of my education and really kind of maneuvered it the way I wanted it to be. Came out of school with a bachelor's in fine art in photography. And I used to put imagery on my resume, photography and imagery, because it wasn't something there. It's really funny now. It is called photography and digital imaging. And so I got out and I went straight into the entertainment industry. I showed my portfolio, my reels, and people could see that I had all these great technical skills. Plus, I understood film, lighting, photo, all of the stuff that happened in cameras. So it really positioned me in a great way to, work in the post-production industry. And so that was really, fabulous, I thought. And I was very successful for a long while doing that. At some point, I think I had a burnout, 14 to 17 hour days working in post-production. And my mom always had this dream, like, oh, one of my daughters will become, will be an educator just like she had been and my grandmother had been. So we carry that lineage. So I went back to school. I went to UCLA and got my education certificates and then, decided to start a family and do all the traditional stuff. And then, basically went into the education side of it. At this point, lucky for me, I'm getting to merge both of my, passionate worlds. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite the journey.
It has been.
I was curious what your emotional state was like while you were, going to school and, starting your photography, only because that part of your story sort of dropped off in terms of like your spiritual pursuits.
Yes.
Right. And interest. Was it still there during that time?
It did. It was there. Yeah. Yeah. And definitely for me, what I realized with photography was it was a way for me to express my spirituality. It was a whole experience. I think I remember that first time lifting my dad's camera, my dad's Nikon, up to my eye and looking through the lens. It was a mindful experience. And I still believe that. I still think that photography is the closest to mindfulness because painters can, or anybody, can create their art from memory or from sketches, and they can build on it over time, whereas photography happens in that instant. And you really have to be very aware and conscious. A lot of times photographers, unconsciously or unawarely, they are doing breath work. They may be holding their breath at that moment as they click so that the shutter speed, just so the shutter doesn't shake, that kind of thing. And I think that is what I realized I was looking for all along, and that was the expression, the mindfulness, the meditation. And so here I am creating programs that are about that creative expression coming from the mindful place. It has been like a big, big key.
So many people get stuck on or in a field or doing something because they've already spent so much time and energy and effort in it. And in this story today, you've had to pivot, or you did choose to pivot twice. Once when you didn't like being in the dark so much in the room, and then again after you've spent all this time in education, energy, money, learning photography, then you're like, I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
So that's hard to do for many people. Where did you get that ability to say, I'm really going to pursue something that's different or going to make me happier?
Yeah, I think that the path is always unveiling itself. I really believe that. I think in those moments they've been clear, like, okay, this is what I did up until now to get here, to be able to do something different. And I think that it's important as creative people. I think everyone is creative. First of all, I don't just think of artists as creative. Everybody has creative expression in different ways and different things. It might be something simple. Maybe they're really into, folding their laundry in certain ways or keeping certain ways of their house, certain places of their house in a certain way, or cooking or whatever it is that's part of their day that is a creative expression that they feel passionate about, And so I think that when you live in that space, you become aware of what opportunities open up in front, and you can just trust yourself. I think that it's important to connect to yourself, follow your intuition, and know like the right things are always unfolding in front of you.
Was there a moment in, switching from photography to education where you thought, maybe I should have stuck with this, or maybe I'm not on the right path?
No, I feel like I gave it my whole. And then like at some point I felt maybe burned out, like especially in post-production, I felt like, oh my gosh, the creative, need for this is burning me out, or I'm not really maybe getting an opportunity to express myself creatively. What's next? What's next is, oh, I can actually teach this. I can reach out to other people who are looking for something, and I can see the perspective that they may need to, get to their creative expression. So I think it's always been unfolding in a great way.
So there's another unique thing I notice about you is this awareness of burnout, right? I think burnout may mean different things to different people, but some people just tolerate it unknowingly for a long time, and they don't even have a word to describe it, right?
Yeah.
So what did burnout look like to you at the end of your photography journey?
It looks like disconnect. I think a lot of people don't realize because they're already disconnected from their own being. You were talking a little bit about like exercise, right? Exercise can be a great modality to become mindful, to become connected to your body. But sometimes pushing past yourself, you can also use it as a disconnect. And I think that's probably what happened to me at that point, was that, oh, this no longer offers me the lifestyle, this creative expression, doing this art no longer offers me the lifestyle to be connected to myself. And is it a dead end, or is there another path? Sure, I could have taken different kinds of jobs and stayed doing post-production work. At that point, I think something was calling through, and I didn't realize that until I was like, yes, okay, should I surrender to the fact that maybe I should look into education? When I got there and started studying, what education was going to be like, I again felt that enlivened about it. Like I felt rejuvenated. I felt like, okay, this was a new path that I could explore, and it could be equally creative.
Creativity is really important to you.
It's very important to me.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be disconnected from yourself, and what does it mean to be connected to yourself?
I think we all go through times where we don't feel completely connected to ourselves. And I think it's a coping mechanism. And I think there's times that we go through hard things, and it's part of nature. It's part of life. Everybody goes through things that you feel like mentally, emotionally, I can't tolerate this, and so the way to survive is to cope. And so there's ways that are, of course, healthy coping skills. And then there's, of course, maybe not so healthy coping, methods, right? So it just depends like what each person reaches out to at that time. I've always been the kind of person who doesn't get addicted to anything. So it's really interesting. I mean, people are like, how do you know? Like, I don't know. I have this like yearning, or this, I don't have a bad bone in my life, or whatever it might be. I'm not sure if I should say it that way, but like when I'm, craving for something unhealthy, usually I'm like, oh, can I get an apple to like satisfy this? Or maybe just a piece of chocolate is great, and I'll go on with it. I don't feel like habitual about things that, I feel like I'm more sensitive, and so I really can like tap into the clues and say, oh, I'm really tired. Maybe I really need a nap instead of another coffee.
Are you connected well with like your social circle? Do you have a good strong connection with people close to you?
I do. Yeah.
Have you heard of the rat study or the mice or rat with the cocaine?
No, I've heard a couple different rat stories, of like different studies, but yes, tell me about it.
Yeah, so the isolated, I'll just say rat, it may be mice. The isolated rat, if given cocaine water and regular water, will drink the cocaine water, to death. Right. And in the same scenario with a group of other rats, they avoid the cocaine water. And that is it's with the rats, not people, but this idea that even though some things may be highly addictive, that it's actually not so much the components of the substance, but rather the social network of the individual.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think isolation, we saw that just a few years ago, right? With the pandemic, a lot of people, the mental health, I'll say, temperature, climate of our country and our world really became apparent. I think isolation is the hardest thing to face, is going through tough things on your own. So yeah, I've been blessed to have a great community that I belong to, and not just spiritually, but like emotionally, all of that. So I think that makes a lot of sense with rats. I just heard another, I don't know if this kind of goes along with it, but another study that went, I don't know if it's rats or mice, but why can't I remember that now that you brought that up? I'm like, I don't know. That was talking about something to the effect that like cholesterol and things that you have, they fed maybe not healthy food to one study of rats, but that study was being pet while they were eating, and then the same food was fed to another group that was not. And then of course the rats that were getting the attention, the affection, the connection, they didn't develop high cholesterol or anything like that. The other group did. So it was like, it's again kind of similar in the sense, right? Like the support and connection network, all of that stuff keeps you healthier.
Yes.
Just overall, I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I are seeing each other's facial expressions, and that's so important also in just like interaction, right? And there was like, a lot of time when people could not even see each other's face. Yeah. And that was stressful in and of itself. Like if I see someone with a mask, I'm like, are you here to rob this place? Like what's going on, right? But for so long, like you couldn't see that part of someone's face. And that was really hard, I think, for society also, going through that. That's like one aspect of it. But Rubina, we ask each guest to bring an item with them. What did you bring with you today? Okay, so I brought my Canon. Can you show that one? Mm-hmm. And for the listening audience, if you could describe what it is. So it's a Canon Mark III 5D, which is very fancy. Yes, for those photographers out there who want to know what I have on here. And what's the lens? It's a portrait lens. Yeah, it's like a 85 millimeter. For the layperson, what is the cost of the body and the lens? I got this maybe about 10 years ago. They probably have much more modern and expensive. We'll adjust for inflation. So yeah, maybe altogether the camera, body, and the lens is about $5,000. Yeah. Yeah. Not cheap. Not cheap. No. And again, I think it symbolizes like my whole journey here, specifically like when I think about growing up in San Gabriel Valley, going to school in Pasadena, and what art means to me in a mindful way. It all comes back to this piece of equipment that brought me to that journey. Wow. Yeah. Can I see it? Of course. I just want to feel the weight of this. Of course. Oh yeah, that's a lot heavier than ours. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I have a little hand strap on there so that it's easier to manage when you're carrying it around. We initially started with handy cams, like little camcorders. We never intended to have. It's a podcast, right? We weren't looking for the video format, but then more and more people want better and better quality stuff. So it's tough when you have to replace 4, though. Yeah, for sure, definitely. I'm one of those photographers that actually is not very geeky about my equipment. So it's like, that's why I said it's my one nice treasure. But I don't think it's the equipment that makes the photographer. It's really your vision. And then it's all the things you do with it, because it didn't matter at some point whether I was shooting on 4x5 cameras or
35 millimeter, taking to the computer, So yeah.
Yes, I agree, but it's a really interesting concept, right? Like it's not the arrow, it's the Indian. However, everybody who uses equipment, whether it's kitchen or photography, knows that better equipment actually is easier.
It makes your job easier.
Yes.
That side of it is true. It can make your job very simple. I mean, it's nice to have a camera that makes beautiful photos. You're already halfway there, right? So yeah, but you can take pictures with anything. And then I don't know where I heard this, but I've definitely heard photographers say, the best camera is the one you have with you. And what does that mean? Usually it's my iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not carrying this big heavy thing around with me in my bag or anything like that. Yeah.
Do you show up at family functions with this?
No, everybody would drive me crazy. I want to enjoy my family functions, but yes, once in a while I'll take it out to take some nice portraits and stuff like that. Yeah.
I was just at the Monrovia Farmers Market last Friday, and I walked by this booth maybe 3 times, and I only went to talk to him because he had this huge smile on his face, and they were space photographs.
Oh.
And he had a camera, like, maybe something like this, but he had this huge lens that he would take photos. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like the galaxy and, the moon and stuff, like just crazy detail. But
Wow.
Well, Rubina, I want to get into what you're doing nowadays, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Sometimes, even the best of us can slip up. That's why the law offices of Scott Wormuth are here to pick you back up again.
And while they strive to get you the biggest compensation possible, oh my God.
Their main concern is your health and recovery. They work closely with doctors and insurance companies to make sure you get the proper medical treatment.
Initial consultations are free, so give them a call.
At the law offices of Scott Wormuth, we're with you all the way.
I'm Scott Wormuth. We've been fighting for your rights for more than 40 years.
All right, we're back with Rubina. Rubina, before the break, you were showing us your awesome camera here.
Yes.
Which I'm is it envious or jealous? Envious of. I'm envious of, yeah. I think the distinction is like, I want it, and then jealousy is like, I want it and I don't want you to have it.
Oh, you're welcome to borrow it or play around with it if you want to.
Before we go on with the show, we like to ask questions from this deck of cards called Icebreakers, and it's just another way for the audience to get to know all of us a little bit better. So we'll all be answering the question. If you could create one holiday, what would you create?
So I think I would love for there to be like a mindfulness day, a mindful holiday, a mindfulness day, or like a day of meditation. We have so many different religious holidays or different cultural holidays, and they feel kind of separated, like this is my holiday, that's not that person's holiday, or, different people are celebrating different things. I guess ideally, like that would be my dream, something that we could all celebrate worldwide. Everyone could enjoy, being mindful or spending, a certain amount of time that day in meditation. Doesn't matter what our beliefs are. Everyone could benefit from it.
Victoria?
The first thing that came to mind was like maybe like celebration of like siblings, like kind of like Grandparents' Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, that kind of thing. But like, I know there's like a sibling national day, but like, I don't know. I think something more concrete would be cool.
No. And she's one of 6.
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters.
Wow. Fabulous.
I would create Single Mother's Day, and specifically single mothers, not single dads or single parents, but single mothers. One, because I think they're often, if there is a divorce or separation, they go to the mom. But also because just as a parent and often away from my wife, that is very difficult. That is very difficult. I mean, just raising kids is challenging. Yeah. But if you're doing it on your own, and having to work, like that's, I can't imagine anything tougher than that. Yeah. The responsibility of like raising a kid, being there for yourself, providing for the family. Yeah.
Did you know I'm a single mom?
Are you really?
Yeah, you didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that. No. Yeah. Okay. So you know.
Yes, I know.
Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. Yeah, that would be great.
And I think it's just not recognized as how difficult it is in society.
I appreciate your perspective on that too. Like even parenting in the house, realizing that, moms carry a lot of that weight.
I don't even know that I would be able to do it on my own. you know? And I think moms are also more aware of like the impact of what they're displaying in terms of their feelings of things, their impact on the kids. So not only do they have to do all this, but they have to show up in a way that their kids are not going to be freaked out.
Yeah.
That's tough too, right? So yeah, shout out to all the single mothers out there. Hope we get a national holiday for you guys. If you're listening or watching, if you could create one holiday, what would you create? Let us know in the comments. So Rubina, you are doing something different, or actually no, you're in education, but sort of along these spiritual lines now, right? So you've come full circle from very early on. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I definitely am doing education for creatives, and I'm bringing mindfulness through it. So I do different things. Of course, I actually teach in high school, and I bring mindfulness into my programs. I also have taught in the past in middle school as well as early childhood, elementary, and all different levels. And I do it because I feel I need it as an educator too, like walking in the door. I'm always like, okay, take deep breaths, become really aware. You know, I don't think people realize educators are like performers in some ways. You're there, you're giving so much, information. You're also managing a lot. And I don't see how some of them do it without mindfulness. I'm just like amazed. So I've been lucky enough in my programs to be able to bring mindfulness to each of my groups. My directors have been great about it. And so this is a program that not only comes for the students who are focusing more on art expression, but also for educators. So I do workshops and trainings as well.
What does mindfulness look like for a young person, like a elementary school person?
They're already there, they're picking up on stuff sometimes, and they, just like we were talking about earlier, the disconnect that happens. So just becoming aware of things. Sometimes it's mindful movement. Sometimes it's just anchoring themselves with realizing that there's sounds in the room and that they're present, just bringing them a sense of presence. Creativity is a natural expression in a mindful way. And so my workshops have been like mindfulness through creativity, creative reset, which is great for, everyone, even if they're not in the classroom, creatives who may be burned out there.
Well, I'm so curious how many creatives and artistic creatives specifically have that as a way of healing or expressing if their natural, like verbal or physical ways of expression have been suppressed. I'm curious about this because it's like one of the very intentional things for my wife and I to not limit or quiet our children's expression in any way, like to allow them to vocalize. Yeah. Do you see that with artistics?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important what you're doing with your kids. Personally, I raised my son that way as well. Just, sometimes kids make sounds. I feel like them making sounds, even if they're eating or whatever, is their way of getting information. And slowly you can bring their attention to it. Like, oh, notice you're making these sounds. Like, what does that mean to you? It's giving them clues into themselves. So parenting with that ability, like you're saying, for yourself and your wife and your home, to let the child come out with their own expression is so important. We don't realize that all of us as children at some place, if it was at home or school or maybe our church, we're kind of shut down. And so to be able to open that up so that our full expression of ourself, whatever that means, it doesn't mean only, again, an artistic expression. It could just be maybe that we're like, not feeling confident to speak up or not feeling confident to go and approach the things that we need to or handle the things that we want to, with our advancement in life.
As an adult now, I'm fully aware that my suppression of one emotion, like let's say frustration or anger as a child, has limited my expression of all emotion.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't dull one without the other, right?
Yeah.
And that's like really sad. I've come a long way from not being aware of that, but I think one of the most powerful things we can give to our kids is allowing them to express. Because if you go along and you are triggered by them, like this is your issues that you need to handle and deal with.
Right.
I see so much of that. I see so many parents who are experiencing their own repeated patterns, but they're just unaware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just in that place of letting them become aware. you have to become aware first, right? And parenting, I think, is the biggest educator of our life. It really starts to challenge your own thinking, your own thoughts, your own way of being when you see it reflected in your kid. Either you're horrified sometimes, right? Or you feel like, oh my gosh, I passed this down, like, unintentionally. It really keeps you in check. And it's all day long, it's happening, that your kids are watching you and learning from you.
You would hope that it's the biggest educator, right? But sadly, like, it's not. Some people are just not aware like that, right?
Right, right.
The thought process is often like, well, I'm okay.
I turned out fine. My parents smacked me. They'll be fine,
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, it's horrifying. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think that they, even if they're unaware at that time, eventually they learn it by just seeing, oh, wow. I mean, I hope. I don't know. Maybe I'm an optimist in that way of thinking that everyone becomes a little bit self-actualized at some point in their life, even the people who we think are going around blindly.
If they can get clear on the outcomes that they want, then they'll know if they're going down the right direction or not. And our outcome is very clear. When they have really messed up, when they're really scared, when they're in trouble, will they come to us?
Right.
That is the outcome we're shooting for.
Yeah.
And if you are not getting that outcome, like in something small, you can guarantee they are not going to come to you when they have really messed up. And as a parent, that's what you want, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you can get clear on that, like, you'll know.
Yeah.
Am I getting the result I want, or am I not?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, Rubina, we're going to move on to the final segment of the show where we get to learn more about what you like in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah.
Rubina, this is the SGV3, and we ask you to share your 3 favorite or most memorable places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley.
It's funny. This is actually really easy for me.
Okay.
I think it's what brought me back here. It goes back to, like you said, I'm so much about creativity. So I would have to say the top one is the Huntington Library and Gardens. It's just a place that I really grew up and was frequenting so much through high school and as a creative, as an artist, and still I'm actually a Huntington Teachers Advisory Panel member right now. And so I've been a member for years, and just it's another home for me.
What does being on an advisory panel there mean?
So I'm actually as a teacher advisor, and they have a whole education department. The Huntington has a whole program online for educators. They have curriculum, they have events, things resources that teachers can bring into the classroom. Besides, if you think of just a place to go for a field trip, they have a whole slew of information and wealth of knowledge and arts, of course, And so being on the panel is really a great way for me to have a say in what can be out there expressed more for educators. What can students have more experience of? And I have to say, I'm really excited they're bringing mindfulness. I always bring that aspect in my panel meetings of like, hey, how can we bring some mindfulness to the classrooms through the Huntington? They have their beautiful Zen garden. Can we practice meditation there? That kind of stuff, and we do now. On field trips we do, and they have more programs. So it's been a really great opportunity, and it makes me really happy to have that, that place where I kind of grew up in too.
Sorry, in a second.
Yeah, my second place is ArtCenter. It has such a vibe, even when I think about when I was going there in high school, walking up to that building. It's like a skyscraper on its side, and the smells of all the chemicals, which are probably very toxic, but just that vibe of so much creativity happening in that place, and just a place of so much, potential. Yeah, so many great minds and activities are happening there all the time.
Did you ever feel intimidated going there? Like that, oh, there's so many people who are more creative than me? Or did you feel...
No, I think I always felt inspired. I always felt inspired, yeah. And it's something to look up to.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And a third place?
And then the third place is also an artistic place, of course, in the museum. It's the Norton Simon, which is just right around the corner in Old Town Pasadena, right close by to ArtCenter. We went there often. We frequented in a lot of classes, spent a lot of time sitting there and understanding those pieces of art. And I really love that they have all the Eastern Asian art in the lower level, and I think that's really special. I think it really speaks to what's happening in this area. You know, there definitely are more Indians in the San Gabriel Valley. There definitely, and then a lot of different kinds of Asians, and it shows the trajectory of like all the dynasties and stuff. I think it's really amazing.
I live in Pasadena, and I often forget that it's just right there, right?
Yeah.
Like this, and it's a world-class museum, beautiful museum.
It is.
And I think they often have like lectures there that you can go sit in and listen to.
Yeah, they do. And they also have a nice little garden. It's small, but it's really pretty. You know, you're so close to the freeway, which you can hear a little bit, but there's just like this beautiful array of trees and like lily pads, lotus flowers. It's really beautiful.
I get why your people think that you're just all like blissed out all the time. Because I'm like, do you have any stress or struggle in your life? Because you just, you know, I know, I imagine that you do, but
I just told you I'm a single mom, so you know, you get that side of it. Yes, and I do cope because of all of these outlets. Yeah.
Rubina, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
They can reach me on my website, theinnerdesign.com, and I'm also on Instagram. I'm very active, the official Rubina.
The Inner Design or innerdesign.com?
Theinnerdesign.com.
Theinnerdesign.com. Awesome. Well, Rubina, thank you so much for stopping by today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you go. Another show in the books for you. I really enjoyed this conversation. I want to get this perspective of someone who is artistic. I don't find myself to be particularly artistic. Rubina says she believes everybody is, but to see this journey and courage to just sort of, you know, change paths and go towards what is fulfilling to her, and to recognize and to have that mindfulness to say, okay, this is now, you know, not serving me as I want to, and sort of I need to move on. I think mindfulness is hugely important, and it is like the first step in changing something that you want. Whether it's just to grow or improve or turn around in your life, it first starts with having an awareness of it. And as a 45-year-old now, I can see people who have awareness of themselves and those who don't. If anything, start a mindfulness practice and become more aware of the things that you regularly do in your life, good and bad. Well, that's the show for today. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like and share. And if you want to check out the full back catalog of episodes, check out our website, mysgv.net. And if you want to support the show in a more meaningful way, please do become a patron on Patreon. You'll find us under MySGV Podcast. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us on the MySGV Podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Scott Wormuth, directed by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers, and original music by Yone OG. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind of mother.